right now we're already embracing technology. I mean, the plugins that I use, I have no clue what it does. I mean, some of them, right? I mean, you just click on it and it sounds awesome. And it's like a whole algorithm of shitloads of things stacked onto each other.
But do you ever go back to track 677 and say, oh yeah, that's the one that works now?
I got my own guerrilla bar thing, which has exactly 200-300 people and is like super nice. So I'm going to also present my album in some dodgy bar somewhere.
Hey guys, welcome to a special Hunchback versus Amsterdam Dance Event version podcast. I'm here with Mason, a friend, a DJ, producer, a musician, a lot of things. We had a little bit of a history together, and I thought it would be the perfect time to talk a little bit about your career. More than 25 years of being an electronic producer, composer. Thanks for joining us.
Well, good to be here.
What I wanted to do, because we called this segment, because we are here in Amsterdam and there's all these talks going on, we called it Succeeding in the Music Industry for More Than 2 Decades. I thought that is pretty intense. That's a long period of time, and especially how tough it is to keep your head above the water.
Yeah, maybe the word succeeding maybe just changed into surviving. Surviving of 20-something years, yeah.
So maybe take me back a little bit to the beginning. Like, where did this all start? Was this something you already felt as a child, a pull into the music industry? Was there already something in the family going on where you're saying, logically, I made those steps in this industry?
Yeah, well, I come from a kind of a artistic family. So my father's a sculptor and painter, and my mother and both sisters actresses. So there was kind of a bit of a vibe, okay, do what you want to do as long as you really go for it and really spend, don't do it half, let's say. So when I was young, I was sort of singing on a TV choir thing. It was a thing, but I was just a little kid from 7-year-old sort of singing in TV shows. And the thing was, it kind of brought me to recording studios. And in the 80s, because I'm an old fart, in the 80s, it was like these huge SSL desks and, all these old tape reels. And I was really mesmerized by it. And in the breakdowns, everybody went out to play football. And I just wanted to sort of stay near those mixers and see all these guys with ponytails and smoking a lot of cigarettes. And I was like, I want to be a sound engineer when I grow up. And it kind of succeeded. I mean, I didn't know that making music is even more fun. So it kind of one thing led to another. I played violin back then as well. And when I was a teenager, I just started to DJ. I was really into hip hop and bought a bunch of records, and just one thing led to the other.
Is there also something that you studied that wasn't music related? Was there something that you say, oh, okay, this is a hobby on the side. I love to be busy with music, but yeah, you're also studying, you're doing some school or...
Back then?
Yeah.
No, not really. I kind of knew I wanted to sort of make music, and I was like, as a teenager already, like quite busy with it. I lived in a little sort of suburban town, and I was in the weekends going to Amsterdam to do DJ sets and things where I kind of technically wasn't allowed in the club because I was still 16 or so. Mm-hmm. And but I could come in if I would DJ. No, so I knew I wanted to study, and I went to the Utrecht School of Arts in the end of the 90s, and went there for a few years for more sort of composition, production type of study.
So how did it start? So from this kind of already pull, you were singing in this choir, you were like, oh, I kind of like this, like a way of being busy with music and sounds. Where did it really, what is kind of the step program? Like there's a lot of like young producers, composers listening, and they're like, okay, but can we have a more practical sense? And like, do you call the first bar, say, hey, I can actually mix on vinyl?
Right,
can I open a night?
I mean, there's not like one sort of route you can take, And I guess also in the 90s it was somewhat different than now because it was not internet related. But I kind of, at some points, people around me knew that I was sort of DJing, and I maybe played like 2 crappy records on a school party and stuff like that. And so I told it around, and there was like this really dodgy club in this village that I lived in, and I think there was really a lot of sort of drug related and prostitution and all that stuff. It was really kind of quite a sort of
rock and roll dirty,
like a really dodgy place. And I was allowed to DJ there, so I kind of went there and I brought my own turntables. I kind of saved enough money with working in restaurants to get like 2 Technics, and so I brought my records and 2 Technics and a mixer and stuff every week, which is kind of whatever the equivalent of the weight of two grown-ups.
That's insane.
Yeah, and so I played there a bunch of times, and I had to sweep the floor afterwards. And at some point, I showed up, and they said like, "No, fuck off! You kind of we took over the place. We have a new DJ."
Wow.
So that's that's where I started. But I mean, from then I was pretty fanatic with it. So I was in my bedroom mixing mixtapes and all that, sending it around.
How did you send it around? Was it like a CD or like tapes?
Yeah, it was still tapes, and I kind of spray painted them, and I kind of gave it to people, and and I started to organize my own little parties and things. So it all started really small. But I went end of the 90s. I went to Amsterdam, and then I started to get sort of residencies, and it became a bit more serious. And I think from 99, it started to become international also occasionally.
Yeah.
So I started to travel a little bit.
It's interesting that you're saying it, because I hear a lot of young composer producers, and they are kind of waiting for that agency or this manager that just picks their career up. They are talented, they can make beautiful music, and therefore they don't have to put that initiative up. But what you were saying is like most of all the starts was all your initiative, your own parties, your own way of getting kind of the whole DJ set even to the venue.
No, totally. I mean, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are complaining about gigs. They're always like, I don't have a agent, or that's the reason. But the reason is like there should be demand, because and if there's no demand, there's no agent. And it's not like an agent going to get on board and all of a sudden everybody's going to call the agent for a show. So it's kind of, you need to create something. And especially nowadays when we cut out the middleman. I mean, in the past you still had record stores and a lot of sort of things in the middle, or magazines even, that a lot of people wrote. Right now it's just yourself and the internet, and getting a sort of group of fans and people to support your stuff. So it's pretty DIY, I would say.
It's also quite saturated that way, because you had kind of this middleman in between, which kind of sucks because you are probably being screwed over.
Yeah, but you also had sort of, the guy behind the counter in a record store that would sort of say, hey, this is great new stuff and you should check out this artist. People that gave recommendations that you trusted. And, I'm definitely not the kind of guy like it used to be better, because it isn't. It's probably better now, but it's some stuff changed and it's more DIY. You need to create your stuff yourself, and then agents and managers and publishers and all these people come around the corner to help you out. But it's,
Did you already start producing them? Because you're saying you're playing, you're moving to Amsterdam, you're getting some residencies.
Yeah.
Were you already producing a lot of tracks?
I got like a sampler, the S700 from Akai. I don't know how geeky we can go here, but it's and I had a sequencer, and the floppy drive from the sampler was sort of broken, so I had to kind of leave it on for like a few days if I was working on a record. I think I released my first thing in 2001. I think the learning curve was a bit different than now, because you didn't have plugins and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it was like, it sounded crap longer. So it's, some around 2003, 2004, it started to sound somewhat decent. And then I kind of went pretty fast after that.
And then, of course, you got this major hit, Exceeder. I remember I was a young kid watching a Sensation white DVD, I guess, or it was a live stream. I don't know what it exactly was. And I heard that track. It was Steve Angelo the year before that you actually were on Sensation playing this. Like, damn, this is cool. This was without the vocal yet, so there was the instrumental version. Can you tell something, because you were already producing music for some time, and then you have like that thing happening. And I remember you're saying this was a B-side of an EP. Yeah. Not really thinking this was something, but then it blew up. What did this do for you at the time, doing some residencies, having a hit like that?
Well, it kind of changed everything, flipped everything upside down for me. Before I was doing it full time already, so I was kind of full time DJing, producing on a sort of smaller scale. But then everything just gets sort of blown up, and all of a sudden there's a lot of demand, and so I think between 2006 and 2010, 11, like my life was really based around touring. So I've been abroad a lot. And sometimes pretty ridiculous schedules and things. So that was all new. I mean, I need to get like all of a sudden within a month a manager, and because I only had a booking agent and a publisher, I think. So I need to get a manager, and need to get different agents in different territories, and working with all these different labels per territory. So all of a sudden the whole game got a bit bigger, and it was obviously I screwed up in some of these things, and some things I did right, and just did my best. I think I'm super thankful for obviously the record, but also for the fact that I had a lot of international touring experience before that.
Yeah,
because I used to be Tiesto's warm-up DJ, for instance, for his world tour for a while. So, and that was all before Exceeder. So I had like my experience of, how it is to be abroad a lot, and
so it wasn't too intimidating right away. Like
because sometimes you hear people who straight away from the bedroom got thrown into the arena at Ultra and all these kind of things, and it's it's can be quite heavy for people mentally, or just not being very good at DJing yet, or stuff like that. So I had like my 10 years of experience already, so that was kind of very helpful, and I kind of stayed my head cool and did my thing. But it also kind of, a lot of people then expected, especially when it became a chart hit, that I would only make sort of very chart focused music, but I'm not really that kind of guy. So I felt like, great, now I have a sort of window of people watching to kind of bring all my other stuff, all my weirder things and stuff like that. So I also, that's just who I am. And so that also means that I didn't focus on making a sort of super commercial follow-up, but I focused on making an album that's more artistically gives a bit of a view of what I'm about. So also means it's fine that it's not sort of a private jet lifestyle or anything like that, but it's, it did bring me like a crowd, and the fact that I'm still, can live from music.
Did you know that it became a TikTok challenge? Have you seen what happened
did
there?
It?
Yeah, I saw that there's like a weird pigeon challenge where they're dancing on Exceeder. I was still checking out. I was like, oh, okay, I see this. It's the pigeon dance on Exceeder. I don't know exactly what correlation it has with another.
Okay, you have to show me, yeah.
It made me laugh. It's like funny. It kind of goes back again. Sometimes music that has been released in the past kind of has like a second life. Kind of
for sure, yeah. And it's kind of, because it was such for electro and electro house, it was such a sort of, I guess, classic in that sense. So people who kind of had their first whatever, they were teenager, then have sort of memories from it and stuff. So it keeps on coming back and getting used for advertising and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hey, and then in terms of festivals, I remember, I believe you even played at the TMF Awards. It's probably with Chesto, with the violin, but also Sensation. I already said that. And Tomorrowland, like this is blowing up still. Like it's the biggest festival on earth. How is that? Like, how do you prepare for something like that? How do you even react on something coming your way when you hear, oh, they want me on the main stage here and there? Is that something that you can keep your cool about, or just what you said, you just had the experience? So
yeah, I'm not a very stressed guy in that sense. I don't sort of I don't get that nervous, I suppose. The thing with like the bigger the stages get, the more you have to prepare for it and can't sort of improvise. I feel it's maybe kind of not usually people don't say it out loud, but I feel like the bigger the stage is, the more it's like it's definitely not pre-recorded, but you planned it, let's say. So while if you're in a dark club, you can just sort of go with the flow and see what happens on the dance floor. But I mean, a thing like Sensation, you have like whatever, a few hundred lights on you, so you also don't see the crowd. So you also don't see the crowd reaction really. I mean, you see maybe the front few lines, but it's too big to kind of get a feeling like, oh, this record works, oh, let's try something else. That stuff is more for smaller places. So that was more the thing. Like if it big stages, you kind of prepare a little bit more.
And if you think a little bit more about the business, you of course you have these stages, you get all like the fees for it, but it's an up and down thing. Like at one point you're kind of the hottest thing, and then the other time like somebody else is taking over. How do you kind of keep during all those years to say multiple income streams? Like if you think about, sure, you have gigs and you have your music and you have a label. Like, did you deliberately think about this all the time? Like, is this something that you were focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just sort of, it's just a journey, and it takes you wherever it takes you. But yeah, for sure. I mean, at some point, the whole sort of Exceeder thing died out and that was kind of done. So I need to have, so my career was more about the new stuff. And there were a few years when that was kind of complicated, I suppose. And I think the last sort of 7-8 years, I feel like I kind of found my sort of voice and have a sort of loyal fan base, let's say. And it's not massive and it's not, but it's enough that there are people checking out my music, that I can live from music, that gets streamed. And then I have shows and things. So, it's also like, what do you want in life, right? I mean, do you want is it always about growth, or is it kind of just about, for me, it's about, I kind of want to just do the things I love, and not think too much like, okay, this is a trendy sound and I need to follow this, or this is the thing I need to do. I mean, it's not like a one-time decision, but it's like 1,000 times I've been on that crossroad where you kind of, where I'm always that sort of stubborn guy that kind of does his own thing. And I kind of feel like right now it's sort of starting to work in my favor, that people think like, he's that dude on that island doing his own thing. And the people know that so now I'm embracing it, and doing my projects are sometimes kind of quite out there.
And people respect that, I think, just to stay in your lane, not really following the trends all the time, but really creating something unique in that sense.
Yeah, but it's also not an easy route. I mean, if you're, let's say, a techno producer, then it's pretty kind of clear. Okay, these are the 10 techno promoters in my country. These are the labels I need to release on. These are the artists I need to associate myself with, or remix or whatever. It's quite a sort of like a linear career path you can sort of try to proceed, and that's a little bit more complicated if you're more on the sort of islands. But it makes it more fulfilling for myself, and for me that's the most important, more so than money or stuff like that.
You also started as a duo, I remember you switching to saying, okay, I'm doing this alone now. Like, was that a huge switch in terms also of, because now you only have to worry about you as an artist and not worry about two people?
Yeah.
Was that a big
up and
change?
down. So the first 10 years I did everything on my own, and then for a bunch of years I worked in studio with somebody, and we also played live together. So we did a live show with all the sort of visuals and lights and blah blah blah. So that was together, but we also. Yeah, so it was also complicated. You have to make a agreement about every hi-hat pattern, and kind of, it goes slower. So when we split up in 2014, I kind of my career went easier, and I was quicker and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you say, of course, you need to always have two opinions, and everybody needs to be happy. So it becomes to some extent bureaucratic. With one another.
Yeah. And it kind of really worked when I was touring a lot also, because he wasn't, and we can sort of swap ideas back and forth while he was sort of in studio in Amsterdam and stuff. But I kind of I feel like it's more me now, what I produce now.
Cool. Then as well, like on Spotify nowadays, it's like the easiest thing. You just upload hundreds of thousands of tracks every day.
Yeah. In
a way, kind of artists are eating away their own streams. Like it becomes invaluable. It's like the value is dropping. I mean,
totally.
How do you reinvent you? Like, doing this for so long, you have had multiple of those stages where things are changing. Social media is kicking in. Like the whole technology is different, or how we even DJ live shows and stuff. How do you stay relevant? Like in this extremely saturated crowd. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a difficult industry. I kind of always feel like it's the nicest job in the most fucked up industry in a way. Not the people. I mean, I love the people, but it's more like it's a very complicated industry because the trends are going super fast, and the life longevity, let's say, of a career or of a record or anything is shorter and shorter and shorter. And kind of what you say, the rules also change every 2 years, then sort of streaming, and then TikTok takes over, and then social media before, and NFTs. Remember that? It was just last year. And, it goes so fast. And so you need to adjust all the time. And it's obviously easy if your brand is so big that anything you do, you have like a huge sort of following, the sport, everything. But like, I think for most people, it's, these sort of fake bulls that you have to sit on. It's called rodeo, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I mean? They try to kick you
the
off.
Mechanical.
Yeah, I mean, I think the music career is kind of like that. So you kind of get kicked off the thing unless you really focus on staying on the thing, So if you blink your eyes or you're doing whatever world, say I'm going to backpack for half a year, you're out, So it's kind of, you need to stay on the ball all the time. And that's kind of a career path you need to like, It's
So would you say that you need to embrace that change constantly, and now you have the story of AI, you need to embrace it always?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, you're out otherwise. And it's also, I mean, keeps it interesting. It would be kind of if we would live in the 50s, we have like probably 20 years of exactly the same career. It's changing super rapidly, and you need to kind of adapt yourself. And everybody does, and people are out and in and out. I mean, I've been around for long enough that I've seen people who had like amazing music careers, then sort of being a cleaner somewhere, and it kind of goes up and down because it's kind of not so easy to make a living from it. And as you say, there are so many people who are trying. So the people on the other side, let's say, have a position that they can choose, and they can also bargain prices down and things like that. So the actual number now is 140,000 records uploaded per day on Spotify.
Jesus.
So that's a little over 1 million a week.
Yeah.
And that's before the AI tsunami is hitting us. When your brother can produce somewhat decent music as well, and your nephew and your sister, and so it's there's so much music out there. So you need to find a way to get an audience, and that can be setting up your own events or your own label, or you need to just. I think the time where you could just be really good and it would serve us, that sort of romantic idea, I think is a little bit over. I mean, it happens from time to time, but it's the time where sort of you be whatever, Dave Bowie, you could just do heroin and people would drag you from one hotel room to the other and just throw you on stage for, you need to be a bit more entrepreneurial about a thing. And
you have to diversify, you say. You have to see, okay, then maybe this is coming, embrace it, use it to your advantage, kind of go with the wave, use it to your most opportunistic sense, and continue that path. Because fighting it is probably not going to work out for you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it does get easier the longer you're around, you have a bit of a name, and there's sort of music rights, income and stuff like that. So I'm in a somewhat easier position than if you're just starting out now. But you need to adapt constantly. But it's also fun, right? I kind of see those as a challenge.
It makes it dynamic.
Yeah.
So, of course, you have also a licensing, sync, bespoke music, it's called. Like when your music is placed under commercials, trailers, maybe documentaries, films. This is also happening. This is something that you deliberately pushing, like publishing. Is this something more of a happy accident? So you're selling your tracks, you are doing all these gigs, you're organizing these festivals. Is this something that you really deliberately pushed? Because I know that you ended up in some great commercials.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm super happy about it. But it's a bit of a coincidence. But it's people just pick my music, so that's awesome. And but I mean, one thing does lead to the other. So my publishers are pretty involved in pushing it out there, and also other way around. If people kind of know that a few of your records are being used in a lot of commercials, then they might also check out the next one, and or they copy it. For instance, I had this record called with Steph London, the rapper. It's called Fashion Killer, and it was the theme song of America's Next Top Model, that's a US show. And because it was used like for a year or so throughout the television program, then all these fashion brands also want to use that song because people subconsciously linked it to this fashion show. So then Dior and Louis Vuitton and all these kind of brands came around that they also used it for commercials. So sometimes just lucky accidents, but it helps a little bit that sort of my stuff is a bit sort of quirky and hooky, and it fits, I guess, games and advertising a bit. I mean, more so if I would do very sort of experimental dub or whatever.
So would you say you are being typecast now because you just landed that and now you are typecasted in the fashion world?
Well, yeah, and I'm totally not a fashion victim. No, it's awesome and I'm super happy with it. But I just in studio just make whatever I make, and obviously my publisher, manager, stuff are all kind of trying to pitch it, but.
And did it change? So when you landed these things, where you're like, oh, this is kind of a happy accident, of course, with the purpose of landing something, where you're like, that makes me think differently about the business. Why don't I aim more on production music outside of club music and the more poppy stuff? Is there something that changed within you where you say, whoa, this is quite lucrative? Or
not because of this. I mean, my stuff changed over the years anyway, but I suppose everybody's music does over the years. I'm right now a little bit more having a vibe with more poppy stuff and more indie left of center pop music. So a lot of my stuff, I've an album coming out next month, and it's hardly for dance floors, So we kind of don't even bother making extendeds of most of the records because it's just pop music in a way, electronic pop music.
Isn't that scary when you kind of think, oh, the audience and the community that I have built around myself is kind of expecting this, but now I'm turning in the other side? Like, are you ever afraid that you lose?
I kind of do that all the time. So I'm shooting myself in the foot all the time with it, but as long as sort of stuff works, or sometimes, or at least one of every few records works or does well, then it kind of, exactly what I say. As long as I can sort of do this full time, and then I don't care that much that I shoot myself in the foot. Obviously, if I had a time when I was really focused on Beatport records and just getting every record in the charts, and at some point I was kind of doing well with that. I think 75 records went into the top 100, something like stupid amount at some point. Because we also knew like exactly where the preview moment of Beatport was exactly. So that's 2 minutes after 40% of the record, something like that. So then we knew, okay, you need to have that. Anyway, so there was a time I was focusing on that, and now I'm kind of totally going a different direction. So sometimes you also get people on social media saying like, hey, I missed the dance floor records and blah, blah, blah.
But you're saying that you were kind of producing music kind of with the Beatport preview intent. So this is kind of the moment that they show a little snippet
at least
of the
we
song.
were aware of it. So if you were arranging, you kind of knew, okay, it's going to be there. So
I remember some artists saying that they're doing this with Spotify to make it as short as they can. So the more it's being looped, the more it's being played and played.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that whole, what is it, lo-fi stuff is like a lot of albums of these 1.5 minute records. And I don't know if you guys know, but like from 30 seconds onwards, it counts as a stream. So you need to grab people's attention for 31 seconds, basically. Otherwise, it doesn't count. Otherwise, you don't earn anything. So the whole music industry changed. So you will never ever hear like a single anymore that has like a long intro or a double verse. For whatever 3-4 decades, it was normal to have like verse 1, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, let's say chorus, bridge, chorus, let's say. And right now it's just intro, chorus.
Go time.
Bam, there we are. There's the biggest hook of the record. And don't bore us, get to the chorus. It's kind of the...
I even see that sometimes they put even indeed the chorus like a very snippet on the beginning and then they start kind of the intro. I see this with trailers as well. Like if you go to movie trailers, game trailers, they have like this 5 minutes attention grabbers. They really put like all the dopamine shots in there, and then the real thing starts just to grab your attention.
It does kind of suck, I mean, you don't get Stairway from Heaven that way, So it's, so I kind of don't like the fact that sort of music gets, it's also a single market. It also has to do with it. Like in the past, people bought albums and then sort of you would listen to the whole album at home and maybe at your favorite song that you play the most and go back to track 7 a lot. But right now, kind of the days of albums are a bit done because it's all playlists now and people listen to very singles. So for most artists, like their main singles are played 1,000 times more than their album track 9. So if people only listen to your singles, kind of you need to get those out there and stuff. So it's it has to do with that as well.
So with the album coming out, like, isn't it now better because the system is working like this that you kind of release the album in singles every week and that is the whole album? But you have like all these Spotify submissions and they don't allow you to submit one more than one track of the album or one track of the EP. So wouldn't it be better to do the whole album? Let's say it's 15 tracks, just to release it as singles constantly and eventually bundle it as the album.
Yeah, well, I think at some point, they'll figure it out that you're like pitching too much. But it changed around. In the past, it used to be you release an album and then single 2 and then single 3. And right now, it's you release single 1, single 2, single 3, and then the album. It always do how DSPs work. And also radio. In the past, it used to singles would be on radio before it was out, and right now it's like they don't play it on radio unless it's already on DSP because people Shazam it at home, so you need to find it straight away.
Yeah, so sometimes like if you see the record is coming out in a month or something, like I feel like that people kind of want instant gratification, instant success. If they know about your album, they kind of want to listen to it right away. If not, they forget about it.
Yeah, so we work with radio pluggers, for instance, and they'll sort of test the waters here and there. They make sure like radio DJs are aware of the record and are going to play it, but they say, okay, you have to hold on till this and this date, and then you're allowed to play it because that's the date that's also on Spotify. So then that first weekend is super important.
Then you also have your own label, Animal language, always so much fun. The art is fun. It's very playful. It even ties in with your cafe raves. This is a very cool concept, if you ask me. Can you tell me a little bit of why you started this label? What was kind of the motive behind it?
Yeah, it's been around for a while. Animal language. We've passed 100 releases. I think 110 or so.
Yeah.
It kind of started a little bit in the heydays of Exceder and all that, because then people really, especially labels, really expected sort of this sort of more commercial side of me, which I also have from time to time, but also want from time to time to do something that's kind of weird. And it was super nice to create a platform where I can do whatever I want and release it tomorrow and not wait for release schedules and all that. So it kind of gives me a lot of freedom. And obviously once in a while release stuff from artists that I dig.
It's cool.
And we're doing all these guerrilla parties throughout town, as you say. And yeah, it's a nice little labor of love, you know.
So with these cafe raves, which is you hop from like an hour or maybe in a 1.5 hour from like a very vintage bar.
Yeah, we kind of look for, everybody knows these hole in the wall alcoholic bars, you know, where there's 2 people are sitting on the bar and there's nobody. We go to 4 of those bars on one night, and we take along 200-300 people and a sound system on wheels. So there are 2 people sitting at the bar, let's say, and then 300 people come in, rave and stage dive and jump, and then after an hour we go to the next bar and next bar and next bar, and we did that now for 10 years. So we've kind of almost finished Amsterdam, I think, by now, because we did literally been in 100-something bars. And
it's pretty insane. I remember myself hanging upside down in a bus. How that happened, I don't know, but you were responsible for that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's for free, and we kind of it doesn't need promotion anything, because people just kind of want to join in, and we only announced where we start like a few hours before. So we just say, okay, keep an eye on this page, and then we say, okay, it's the supermarket near the vegetables at this time. And then all of a sudden you have like 10, 15, 50, 100 people bumping in there, and then we can go to the first.
But in a way, like these bars sometimes very much abandoned, but they still can be on very low rent because they got the place 50 years ago or something. You're almost helping them in an economic sense. Like they are doing a lot of money in an hour. Yeah, we don't do this in a year.
Yeah, and they're kind of all of a sudden young, nice-looking people there and things like that. So they always ask us back and stuff, and they kind of probably don't really kind of know that we're also sometimes picking them for the ironic side of things. So there's that. Well, actually, I'm having my album in November, and we're doing a release in the Ministry in London, and also I wanted to do a release in Amsterdam. And I was thinking, I need like this sort of nice, cozy 200-300 people party. Which clubs I do? I was kind of thinking and brainstorming about it, and I was like, nah, that's ridiculous. We have my own guerrilla bar thing, which has exactly 200-300 people, and it's like super nice. So I'm gonna also present my album in some dodgy bar somewhere.
It's fun. I like how you kind of combine kind of the bigger commercial things with some more of these unique incentives that you're just creating, because it keeps it fun. It keeps it very dynamic. Like it's almost like a symphony, you know, a piece where sometimes it's very loud and sometimes it's a little bit softer. I think you find the right balance in that.
Well, I think you kind of also need to find, you know, for instance, this party, you know, it's not important in any way. It's not sort of helping my career per se, but it's like, it does give me sort of a lot of fuel, you know, that, this is what I'm sort of working for, you know, this is the feeling where it's all about, why we play and make music and all that stuff. And that sometimes, you know, there are also other things in the music industry that feel a little bit more like work. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting it really loads me up a lot, that sort of stuff, to do it and do whatever these free Queen's Day, King's Day parties and things like that, just because you feel like, okay, this is what it's all about. And then, it's the opposite.
If you look back a little bit, like, is there maybe a significant evolution that you witnessed where you're like, whoa, that was really something I didn't really anticipate on, but I needed to adapt, or I needed to change, or maybe even from my own interest to say, I don't mind. Something that you witnessed was kind of a turnaround moment in all those years where you say, whoa, I needed to really shift gears there.
Well, I kind of feel it's heading our way now with AI a little bit. That's kind of, okay, this is going to be a bit of a defining moment and going to change a lot. Obviously, COVID was for everyone.
Yeah.
And I feel like kind of I had like sort of 10 different career moments, I mean, from the outside, it might look at like one career, but for me, it was like I had that period where I was doing this tour, and this period where I was doing this album, and this period where I was doing this collaboration. So they all feel like different chapters, and every time it's like a new chapter where you kind of do stuff very differently. For the last year, I was very busy with a vocal group, Vimo vocal group that's joining me on stage called the Maisonettes. And now I'm doing a lot of vocal studio sessions. So it's like, it's every time something different. It would just bore me to death to make tech house every day. And, it's just not me. And, because I'm every day in studio, so I kind of want to do different bits and different things. I kind of also like writing now for other people as well. Sometimes, for pop artists and stuff like that.
So like ghost writing? Or
but not for dance artists. So I won't sort of produce some sort of DJ's record, but like for pop music, it feels like a bit of also a new chapter for me to write and produce for.
And when do you decide? So you're doing something and you're working with this vocal group, and sometimes you're doing this album. It's a little bit more experimental. When do you decide, like, okay, this is the end of the chapter? When do you decide, like, oh, is it just, are you getting bored at some point? You're like, oh, I need to change things up. Is it more of a financial thing? Like, how do you
sometimes
decide?
it has a sort of an organic sort of life cycle, let's say. So a tour ends. We did like a 20-date tour, and then COVID hit. So then it stayed with 20 instead of 40. It kind of that ended. I'm doing a lot of. I'm a lot of studios with pop artists, so that kind of led from one thing to the other. Like, okay, I have like so many songs. Let's create an album out of this, and so I started just with 30 or 40 records, and then kind of I felt like it's going to be some sort of double album, and then it's just sort of cutting out, and then now I'm ending with a normal sort of album length.
Is it so? Is there a challenge? I know your Night Ride series, where you kind of create this piece of songs rather fast, and eventually made an album out of that. How you challenge yourself, where you say, oh, I have these methods, and the moment that I feel I'm getting writer's block or something, I don't think that you have that, but is there something where you say, oh, I have these somewhat practical methods to kickstart the next inspiration?
Yeah, I think you kind of need to avoid that you're staying in a loop, that you're always starting your records, for instance, the same way. I mean, that can really help for inspiration. Like one day start with sort of sampling, the other day start with a synth, tweaking a sound, the other day start from a song point of view, just to pick up a guitar or piano and just start to write something and then create electronic music around that. Keep it fresh for yourself, because, or, if you're always working on behind your Ableton or Logic, go to Cabin in the Woods with just a sequencer or, a MPC or something like that, just to, it really kind of, you need to get out of your comfort zone and kept being pushed a little bit. And I think also working with other people really helps me, who have different, who are good at different things, I mean, I've had the pleasure of working with some amazing people, and it's really kind of, especially if they have nothing with dance music, or maybe even hate dance music, it's probably the best collab you can have, just get in the room with somebody and just create, and also be ready to just throw away most of the stuff.
What are some collaboration where you say, wow, that's something I just tried out that you're really proud of, or something that you say, wow, that really shifted my perspective, or it actually pushed me into a certain genre? Did you have that, or was it always a deliberate choice to collaborate with the artists that you do?
Yeah, so I kind of just go into the studio with a lot of people. So for this album, now with the Gorillaz MC and with Dragonette and Jack Garrett, and for instance also Sophie Barker from 07, I did a track with, and so I'm just in studio with all these different people, and they're all so different. Some of them, can just sort of do a one take and that's it, and then or take an hour to whatever, smoke pot, and then they just, especially rappers, and they just come, okay, this is it, okay, I'm out of here, and then maybe I can grab and the others are like, syllable for syllable, and you're working for whatever days on one verse or something, but just to get it perfect. And I kind of like the diversity between that, the difference between people who are like went to sort of music, had a proper classical music education, to people who just sort of have the opposites and coming more from sort of street perspective, but just have a vibe, and it can be just as awesome, that really kind of inspires me. But I think it's important. I think people are kind of settling too easily and are I think you just need to create shitloads and throw away like 95%. And I think people don't sometimes do that. They just sort of, because at the end, it's just about musical ideas. You can make anything sound great and fat nowadays with whatever plugins and fat filter and all these things. But it's, the core idea needs to be good. So I think you just need to produce shitloads of ideas and throw away most. And then once in a while, there's something that's worth actually that linear process of finishing, So, and it's also a muscle you can just train, just keep on creating.
So you have thousands of these drafts. So
I have,
when do you decide to say,
it's really bad.
But this
actually.
one is
so
hitting it. Like, how do you decide? What is the criteria here?
Yeah, so now you're really getting into my geek side of things. But I have like a folder of 7,000.
7,000.
And at some point, you also have the naming issue, because at some point I was numbering them, but that's like the worst idea you can have, because
7,000.
So then I went to all the cities I knew, and then all the countries and all the rivers, and now I'm in household utensils. So then for a year I'm already in the kitchen. So then you're like. And you say, and every time make an idea, whatever, 45 minutes, you save a Logic file and an MP3. That's it. And the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. And at the end of the week, you have whatever, 30, 40 ideas. And, you kind of create a whole bunch. And obviously most don't see daylight. But there's always like one or two that are kind of not crap.
Yeah.
And it also really helps me when I'm in studios with other people, that I can bring, okay, here are, in your kind of vibe, what we're looking for, here are 20 kind of rough ideas just to get going the session. And then afterwards I can always kind of create a whole new track around it. But yeah, I think it's just, it's just a tap you need to keep on running and stay productive.
But do you ever go back to track 677 and say, that's the one that works now?
Yeah, I have these kind of recycle folders where like the beats are good, but the rest is shit, or there's a good bass line here, and I'll put them in a sort of the good bass line folder. And
is this in your head? Do you have this remembered?
No, it's a file.
So you just check
situation.
A little bit of the.
And sometimes I kind of go back to a year, so I kind of listen back to whatever 2011, and then you always pick like that's a weird little breaky thingy there that I can steal now or use now. Yeah,
it's fun. Did you actually change your production software or programs along the way, or have you always stick to the same software? Is it just
I stick to Logic always, because I'm just sort of fast with it, and I think it's about the less you have to think about technical shit, the more you can be creative. So you don't want to think about all these, every mouse click and every menu. You kind of just want to do it and have all your weird shortcut keys and stuff. So I kind of stick to Logic, but obviously I'm doing which I changed my gear. I've always kind of go from having a super full studio with a lot of gear to like back to a Mac, and now I'm again sort of mixing outboard again, and I'm having fun with all these vintage compressors and stuff. And now probably in a few years I'll go back again.
Okay,
I'm making plugins now. Actually, I made a series of plugins that's gonna release at some point. So using those myself.
So this is your own plugins.
Yeah.
So what can we expect from that? Like, what is this? Is this effects? Is this synthesizers?
It's effects, yeah.
Okay, and this is your special signature sounds that you can get only with those things?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make, actually. I made one and we spent like a year on it, and it became so CPU heavy and complex that we kind of parked it and then made 3 different ones. And it's really fun. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. I think that sort of things come back. I kind of want to keep it interesting for myself and keep changing what I do, So then it's, I never made a plugin, so let's do that,
Is it also that you are just creating all these opportunities, so you can sell these plugins and you sell these tracks, and you have a label and you sell other tracks, and you have this sync and licenses, and you have your gigs, and
you mean that there's like a financial incentive to do it,
or are you saying like, no, it's more just because I think it's fun? Like, what is the criteria? Is it like,
I would say 80% fun.
Yeah,
but obviously you also need to get busy and do stuff. If you don't do any project or things, at some point also your income is going to come down, so you kind of can't sit still either. But I'm kind of hopping pretty drastically from project to project because I just find that a lot of fun. But it's like on one hand I'm now kind of busy promoting the album, and we're doing all the PR stuff for that, but like in my studio I'm obviously now working for next summer, the stuff that's happening then, so you need to kind of work ahead and kind of you always need to work ahead quite far.
So if you think about the future, so like I said, more than 25 years, are we going to do another 20?
Yeah, I mean, before AI, I would say definitely. Right now, I say, yeah, well, I'm definitely doing stuff in the music industry, but I don't know if it's the same way or, but it's, yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable doing what I do. And
are you afraid of AI? Or are you going to say, we had a little talk before this and you said as well, like, no, I think I'm going to embrace it as much as I can to help me kind of have focus for other things, to be more efficient that way. Are you afraid of it, or?
I think a little of both.
Yeah.
We'll have to adapt for sure. If it's adapt or die. I think that's really coming towards that. Right now, it's kind of still crappy, but it's doubling in quality every week or so. So it's in a few years you kind of, and I'm 43, so I'm sure there are kids who will be very much quicker to adapt it and run with it. I'll do it as well. I'll go for it. But I just find it hard to look into the far future. It's kind of it's going to disrupt quite a bit. There's also going to be less work for everyone because music making will be much easier. All the craft stuff, the stuff that you learned for 20 years. How to tweak this and that. A lot of that stuff you can throw out of the window, I think, soon. So it'll be more about making creative decisions, and that's also fun. And to be fair, when I started, it was with a sampler and with a synth. You kind of knew what you were doing. You were like, okay, this button does this and this button. Right now, we're already embracing technology. I mean, the plugins that I use, I have no clue what it does. I mean, some of them, right? I mean, you just click on it and it sounds awesome, and it's like a whole algorithm of shitloads of things stacked onto each other. It's not like an EQ anymore or just a compressor anymore. It's the whole blah, blah, blah. And we love it. We all enjoy a lot of it. And it's also with synths. I mean, you still have soft synths and hardware synths that are kind of just free oscillators and a envelope and an LFO. But there's also a lot of that stuff out there where it just sort of pushes button and it gives amazing sound, and you kind of don't mind. I mean, I never heard people sort of mind the fact that's how they generate sound. So it will be, I think, in that sort of, it will continue in that line that we kind of, okay, the source material, a lot of the source material may come from AI, but we kind of make the choices as curators, and we kind of make, okay, AI can do a lot of the legwork of creating shit, but we kind of, okay, so when is it cool? And probably the quality will go up.
What is cool? Exactly. That's always, I'm always asking myself, you listen to being like, damn, this is cool.
But at the end of the day, I think that's the only thing you have, right? It's your taste. Your taste is the only thing that's sort of worth anything, and that's people, us making music. That's our only asset is having good ears, or hopefully, yeah.
I also know that you are kind of in these music societies, also like talking about music rights. You have Buma Stemra. I think you're chairman, if I'm right, or you're at least doing consultancy about the perspective from you as an artist.
Yeah, so I'm doing a little bit on the side. I'm not working for any of these things, but we started an artist association here in the Netherlands called BAM Puppeteers, and we're the biggest artist association now. And we kind of do a lot of lobby work to make the position for artists a little bit better. So, and that is on the DSP side, on the society, so the Buma Stemra's, but also the PRS and also neighboring rights societies, but also on policy making. So we're working very hard with a lot of people on that. I'm not doing that on my own. It also means having the right people on some boards. So I was also on a few of these boards. I was chair at Buma Stemra's members board. So we're kind of quite involved, and it's really fulfilling to do something with your brain as well.
To use your brain.
Well, it's like instead of only making hi-hats all day.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
And it really, it's important to me. The position of artists is quite vulnerable. Artists are in a kind of a weak position when they're negotiating with a major label, let's say, or a big festival or whatever, because you're not in an equal position, right? I mean, there are so many other artists. You don't have an army of legal people on your behalf. You have to fund everything yourself. So it's kind of an unequal battle. But we're going slowly the right direction. I think it really helps that policymakers and people in influential positions are now from a generation that they, in the past when they were 16, also went to pop music or dance music. And I think 10 years ago, that was already different. There was like a lot of policymakers and were coming from very classical music kind of background, let's say, who didn't really get dance music or hip hop or anything like that. And so we're slowly, adjusting a little bit.
How would you say that you defend yourself? I know a lot of composers, producers, they go to schools and they learn about contracts and 360 deals and be careful and read everything and make sure that you claim all your rights. Like how do you think they have to protect themselves? Is there a simple rule over the years of experience that you have that you say, actually don't worry too much about this, worry more about these things?
No,
sometimes I see
worry about this. No, so I mean, never sign something that you don't understand.
Sure.
And if you're not legally savvy, which most of us aren't because it's super boring, then find somebody who is and have it that you trust to check it on your behalf. And that's not like a real estate lawyer or something, somebody who has actual experience in entertainment law or IP law, or a manager or something like that. Because it's like, I'm still sort of, punching myself in the head for the things I signed when I was 19, because you just didn't understand how stupid it was. And they will try. I mean, I'm not like a conspiracy theory guy that like the industry is against us, because they're not. They're fun people and nice people, but they'll obviously try to get as good as possible deal. And so, well, if you see things like lifetime of copyright, or see things like 30 years from now or stuff like that, you need to be wary, it's that, and don't sign that sort of stuff.
Yeah, especially if it's like your whole livelihood, or when you kind of are stuck in a deal and you can be super, then I would always say if it's like a singular thing, right? Like if maybe it's one single, then sure, if you get screwed over with that, you could get over that. But if it's like huge and albums and your whole
but also singles, usually it's just in your career, it might be probably like 2 or 3 or 4 that will make all the money and the rest will lose money or not make any money. So whatever you sign is kind of what's going to happen with it. And it's pretty complicated, because a lot of deals are also, for instance, made when there was no streaming yet. So it was just like, and for digital, we use the same percentage as for CDs or for vinyl. And it was like, because they couldn't foresee that like Spotify would become so big. But
so what would you say then if you go back? So let's say we can take a time machine back to, let's say 15 years ago. Now let's do 20. So you were still already a little bit busy. What would you tell yourself with the experience that you have now?
Don't worry about what sort of industry thinks about what you're doing. Focus on what you kind of love, and I think that will radiate. And this legal thing, like check on your contract, please. If I would have checked all my contracts in the past, but yeah, and just create as much as possible. And
so you would say people don't be too stuck in the theory, don't be stuck, just start creating, making music.
And I think really important never to follow what other people are doing. Never try to be, if you really love that artist, don't try to copy it, And I think a lot of people are in dance music. It's quite a quantity game sometimes. People just release shitloads. And I think it's more important. It's good to be aware of what's happening out there and what other people are doing, but not to copy it, but the other way around, to avoid the cliche. So if like, a lot of people are doing this sound and it's cool, then not do it, because then already a lot of people are doing, So try to avoid all these kind of holes that already other people have filled. And I think that's, so I for somebody that doesn't really follow trends so much, I do follow trends a lot, let's say, just to know what not to do or so.
Yeah, okay. Now, so be aware.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Be aware of what's happening. And so for the next Mason out here listening, checking it out, also wanting to have succeeding or surviving more than 2 decades in the industry, what is an advice that you can give the next Mason that is kind of on the starting position of what you already have been through from this time and age? Is there an advice that you can give this person?
Well, I think community is everything. So create your own community. You have to do it yourself now. It's you and fans. That's the only thing that matters. And that's also the only thing that's worth anything, So once that's sort of healthy enough, there's this rule. If you have 1,000 fans, you can make a livelihood from music. If you have 1,000 fans that support you and appreciate you and come to shows and stuff like that. So it's doable, but I think that's what you should focus on. And also that's later on when you're further in your career, what you can, where other people can help out, and, managers and publishers and all these stuff, they can help growing that further. But at the end, it's about you and people who taking the time to check out your music. And it's so valuable. I'm so thankful for people who listen to my stuff. It's
just building a community, having those around you, using them, or kind of like, and not forget them.
Yeah.
I know that you have some fans that are always coming, or it's nice how you always give them time. Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, and social media is also great for that, and all these things like Discord, where you can have a bit more one-on-one conversation stuff. It's a great time to also communicate with people following your stuff, and they can sort of think along, or with polls kind of give you a direction. And so I try to keep it a bit interactive,
And then again, is there something like you did already so much, you already achieved a lot of things, like is there still something that you are striving for? Is there a goal where you say, yeah, that's actually not have been part of my journey yet, this is something I really want to do? Maybe something people don't know about you. You're like, oh, that's a strange journey that you haven't portrayed.
Well, I would really love to get into the room with sort of bigger league pop artists and write for them, and I know it's happening in bigger teams, and I'm sort of having my first little steps there, here and there, stuff that I wrote for people. So yeah, I because also with Mason, I kind of have my own borders, like what I want to release and what it needs to be sound-wise stuff. But if it's for somebody else, it's kind of borderless. So yeah, I would love to, work for the Dua Lipas in this world. And
you would love to create a track for Dua Lipa. I think you could be great with the grooviness that you have. Yeah. Kind of the funky, a little bit of like the teasiness.
I mean, not literally Dua Lipa, but yeah, but just to get into that sort of, I love pop music and mainstream pop music as well. If it's done right, and I think there are people like Mark Ronson and stuff that are doing such a great job.
Is there somebody on the wish list, or you want to keep that for yourself?
Plenty we chat to.
Okay,
keep on trying. Never aim for the bottom, right?
Awesome. I would like to see that, if that is happening. So do you also think that your career will eventually, maybe you say, okay, I'm not doing all these gigs, or you're saying I'm still doing the gigs and doing venues and doing the raves? Or are you saying like, no, maybe I'm going to be more of that producer?
Well, I think already kind of, my work week is 40 something hour studio, and, then you maybe do one show or something, so it's already time-wise, it's really about studio. And I think over the next, future, it will probably be a bit more in studio with other people, and not only for Mason. And I'm pretty productive, and I find it sort of sometimes limiting that you can only release very little on one artist name. So to do it for others, and yeah.
Then the last question I have is, how do you balance this out? Because we have to do so much attention, social media and your own marketing. And then sometimes managers help you out and promoters. But how do you manage your work-life balance? Doing what you love, being very passionate about it, but also having a family. What is kind of do you have a golden rule to keep this in check?
No, it's complicated, to be honest. Not only with me, but like it's a subject that a lot of people are struggling with, especially. I don't really do the heavy touring at the minute. I do my shows like a few months, but not like the always on the road thing. And that's really hard to combine with sort of private life and sometimes studio. And people can bitch about DJ this or that didn't produce a track himself. But I mean, if you have that DJ schedule, what do you expect? You need people to do the legwork or groundwork for you already. And yeah, so. I try, my main focus is studio, and I have a family with kids and stuff like that. So I'm trying to balance it, but yeah, you need to do a lot of these things with these times, with organize it all, and all the social and all the blah blah.
You're picking your battles, so you're saying, okay, here a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
and just work hard. If you don't like to be a workaholic, maybe just look for a different profession.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mason. I think it's nice to hear your perspective. I know that we talk here and there, but it's nice to have a complete isolated hour with you. Hear a little bit about the roads, the perspective. And I'm very curious. Next album is coming out when?
November 10th.
Let's go. That's definitely, we have to check that out. Is there a few gigs attached to it, a little tour with that, or?
Yeah, there are a bunch. So we're doing the release here in Amsterdam and in London, in Ministry of Sound. So that's where it kicks off.
Okay. Then I'm left off to thank you for sharing. I'm happy that we could do this. I'm happy of Amsterdam Dance Event kind of arranging this studio for us, that we could make the collaboration with Hunchback and that we could have you. Thank you, Mason.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Hey there, I appreciate you watching the video. If you like this one, check out this video or that video. And if you want to support the channel, make sure to click on top of my head on the logo and subscribe to the channel.